Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
I was born on August 17th, 1959, right in Houston, Texas. Back then, nobody knew me by the name that ended up all over the news. My given name at birth was Vernon Wayne Howell.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
Growing up in Houston, things were pretty unstable from the start. My mother was only 14 years old when she had me, and she wasn't married to my father. In fact, I didn't even meet my biological father until I was a teenager. For the early part of my life, my mother left me to be raised by my grandparents, so I didn't have what you'd call a traditional family structure.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
When I was a kid, everyone just called me Vernie. It wasn't exactly a nickname I loved, and the other kids used to tease me with it. It wasn't until much later, in 1990, that I legally changed my name to David Koresh. I chose David to represent the biblical King David, and Koresh is the Hebrew name for Cyrus the Great, the Persian king who allowed the Jews to return to Israel. I did it for publicity and business purposes as the leader of the Branch Davidians.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
I was a pretty lonely and isolated kid, mostly keeping to myself. School was an absolute struggle for me because I was severely dyslexic, which made it hard to keep up with the other kids. I ended up dropping out of high school during my junior year, so I only completed about 10 or 11 years of formal education. But even though I couldn't read school books very well, I was deeply drawn to the Bible and spent hours memorizing large portions of it.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
It started when I moved to Waco, Texas in 1981 and joined the Branch Davidians. At the time, it just felt like a young man finding his spiritual home and a place to play my music. But things escalated when I became involved with the group's prophetess, Lois Roden. After she passed away, her son George and I got into an intense battle for control of the Mount Carmel compound. In 1987, I made the choice to go in there with 7 armed followers to challenge him.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
That 1987 confrontation with George Roden was my first major interaction with the law. A shootout happened, and George ended up shot in the head and chest. My followers and I were arrested and charged with attempted murder. My 7 guys were acquitted, and the jury ended up deadlocked on my charges after I explained we were only aiming at a tree. A mistrial was declared, the charges were eventually dropped, and that's when I officially took over leadership of the compound.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It was February 28, 1993. I knew the world was watching when a fleet of vehicles carrying nearly 100 federal agents from the ATF suddenly raided our home at Mount Carmel. Gunfire broke out instantly, and while the bullets were flying, I was on the phone with a 911 operator preaching about the 7 seals of Revelation. That day, 4 federal agents and several of our people died, and I realized right then that our standoff was officially national news.
Did fame make you more dangerous, or did it simply expose who you already were?
The notoriety drew more followers to Mount Carmel from all over the world, but it also put us directly under a microscope. As the media frenzy grew during those 51 days, my apocalyptic teachings became more intense. I truly believed I was the final prophet opening the 7 seals. The pressure and the global spotlight didn't change my convictions. It just brought the final, fiery climax I had been preaching about right to our doorstep.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
It felt like society and the authorities betrayed us first by choosing a tactical assault over understanding our faith. We felt completely misunderstood by the government agencies surrounding us. But looking back at the internal mechanics, a former member and an anti-cult activist had raised allegations of child abuse against me in 1992. which is what initially drew the attention of legal authorities and triggered the ATF investigation into our retail gun business.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People see me as a strict religious leader, but I was also an avid rock musician. I loved playing the guitar and writing music, and I even had several albums released posthumously, like Voice of Fire. I also loved working on cars. I owned a 1968 Chevrolet Camaro that I spent a lot of time on, which actually survived the destruction of the compound and was later auctioned off.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
The public just saw a madman on the news, but they didn't understand the immense weight of keeping over 100 men, women, and children calm inside a compound that was entirely cut off from electricity and water, completely surrounded by tanks and military gear. During our late-night negotiations with the FBI, I was trying to explain complex biblical prophecy while managing the physical survival of everyone inside.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
My defining rivalry was absolutely with George Roden, the son of our group's original leader. Our battle for the jurisdiction of Mount Carmel Center was fierce, violent, and ultimately landlocked us in courtrooms and shootouts before I could fully claim leadership of the Branch Davidians. Later on, my adversaries became the federal negotiators and directors like William Sessions of the FBI, who I went toe-to-toe with during the siege.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
Aside from managing the internal doubts of some of my followers, I was dealing with severe physical pain. During the initial ATF raid on February 28th, I was shot in the stomach and the wrist. So for almost the entire 51-day standoff, I was trying to lead, preach, and negotiate with the FBI while suffering from untreated infected gunshot wounds.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
There was never a traditional courtroom trial or sentencing for me. On April 19, 1993, the FBI launched a massive tactical assault, pumping tear gas into Mount Carmel to force us out. Massive fires broke out and completely engulfed the building. I never faced a judge. Instead, my life ended right there inside the burning compound.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you, and what part of your story has been exaggerated the most?
The federal negotiators tried to claim that I didn't actually believe my own teachings, and that I was just running a calculated con on my followers. They argued that because I danced around their direct questions about being the Christ during negotiations, it proved I was entirely lucid and faking a messianic complex. But my followers knew my devotion to the scriptures was entirely real.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I died on April 19, 1993, at the Mount Carmel Center in McLennan County near Waco, Texas. I was only 33 years old. My body was discovered in the ruins after the fire, and the official autopsy report stated that my cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head, along with severe burns sustained during the siege.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
It was a mixture of both. My decision to stockpile weapons and take multiple spiritual wives created a direct conflict with the laws of the world around us. But the ultimate downfall was accelerated by the government's aggressive approach and their choice to use tanks and tear gas, which created the exact catastrophic, apocalyptic ending that we had prepared ourselves for.
David, do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before we sign off?
I just want people to look past the heavily edited news clips and understand that the people inside Mount Carmel weren't hostages. They were individuals deeply committed to understanding God's word. History remembers the fire, but it rarely remembers the hours of scriptural study and the community we built out there in the Texas desert.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.